My name is Elham. My pronouns is she, her. And for those that are curious, my name means inspiration, which is very nice.
Would you like to tell us where you were born and the place you come from?
Yeah, sure. So I've been living here in Iceland since 2018. So it's 5 years, a bit more than 5 years actually. And I am originally from Iran, and I moved here to just do my master's here in Litla Gróðurhúsa. And I did my master's in NIPE, New Audience and Innovative Practice.
Which is where we met.
Yeah, exactly. So you know it very well. And so yeah, basically I moved here to do my master's, and I coming from music background in general, like I've been, I don't know, playing music, or I went to music high school when I was like only 13, I guess. So I've been playing music and practicing music for so long. So I was kind of tired of just like being on stage or practicing music in that way. So I really wanted to do something that has more research and is a bit more research based or something. So then I found this program in Iceland University. And it was only here in Iceland and Groningen in the Netherlands.
I'm just really happy to have you here. We have been friends for a very long time. And
Likewise.
I've always admired your practice.
Thank you. Likewise.
And so I'm just eager to ask you a few questions about that. How was it for you to come from Iran and frame yourself in a new society, in a complete new context?
Like in Iran, like everything in music school, university, whatever, I did also my BA in music performance. So everything was just super like within the frame. Like you have to do this and do that, like this. You know, you have to play music like this and that. And then I even remember they were actually telling us, like our teachers were even telling us that what kind of music we should listen to. And they were kind of angry at me that I'm like listening to a lot of like, I don't know, jazz or klezmer or whatever, because it should be just Iranian music. That's it. Like classical Iranian music, not pop or anything, just classical Iranian music, because they believed otherwise basically the way that you're playing your instrument, that kind of music that you're listening to is going to influence the way that you're playing instrument, which is true. It is true, you know, it does. But also I always thought I was just so weird and like, just so, yeah, it was so weird to actually tell me that what kind of music I should listen to. So everything was just very restricted in general, you know. You have to play this repertoire, you have to do this. And it was kind of like a repetitive thing that you have to do this forever, you know. And also like, what I was, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I went to music high school when I was only 13. So I was like pretty young. I was like, it was the time that people are, I don't know, like they can be a kid actually, you know. But for me, it didn't happen in a way, because when I went to school, they were asking, or they were telling us always this message that you should sacrifice your life basically in order to be a musician, to become a musician. Like even one of our teacher was always comparing us to other like girls in other schools that they shave their heads so they have more time. And so they're not gonna like spend much time in the bathroom or shower or whatever. So I was always feeling guilty that I don't have like shaved hair. I mean, I have shaved my hair so many times, but exactly at that time I wanted to have like long hair, and I was like, oh no, like I have to maybe shave my head. And I did, and nothing happened really. Just like,
you did not gain much time.
No, nothing. So all these like messages all the time, you know, like all this criticism in Iran is like really, really huge. For instance, like not only in like schools and universities, but just in families, you know, just a very normal and common things that your mom is telling you that, oh, you're so fat, you shouldn't eat anymore, or this and that. I mean, not me, like I was not really, but in general, I'm just saying that it's like a very common thing that people do, you know, without actually realizing. So yeah, basically with all that, like I had all this like experience of all this like criticism, and like it's really fine and normal to do it. Like I just moved to Iceland, which is, I think, it's a very opposite of that. First of all, in school, like I've often felt that there is no real structure. Even like I feel there's no balance really. I think in Iran is like too much, and here is like nothing basically. Kind of there's no structure whatsoever. You know, there is no frame like that you should do it based on this or that. Everything is just like so flexible and free, and just like do it. It's fine. You know, it's kind of like that. That's how I felt. And also when it comes to criticism, like the society in general, I think I'm especially talking about art mostly. Like I don't know about like other things, or I don't want to go into those things, like social aspects of it. But like when it comes to art, I think also people don't really like to actually, or they don't criticize and they don't like to hear any criticism whatsoever.
So that is a
That's,
difference that
yes,
you
totally.
have experienced between
Yes. Yeah.
both studying as an artist, to be an artist, and being an artist in Iceland.
Yes, totally. It's a very vivid difference here that you can just like you can see it.
Was it hard for you to adapt to Iceland?
Yeah, maybe in some ways, but I wouldn't say it was too hard. I mean,
Did you find support when you moved to Iceland? And what kind of support?
I found good friends and community when I moved here. I remember in the beginning, I really didn't want to stay in Iceland. I started to feel like I'm gonna just, I don't know, like study for a year and then I'm just gonna leave. I mean, you probably remember I was always talking about leaving Iceland. But I think by passing time, finding your own community and friends and some people that you actually trust and you know that they will be there for you, I just like started to feel like more, I don't know. I start to feel that I might actually find the things that I want here in Iceland in a way, you know. But I think also many people that I got to know them faster and we got close are actually not Icelandic. That's something that I should mention that too. But also I've had many good Icelandic friends over all these years and like great people that they really supported me in so many ways.
And just to narrow it down a little bit, what is your perspective on Icelandic society in terms of being welcoming, being inclusive, embracing diversity?
I think it's not fair if I say that all people are like not welcoming, but I guess there's like a good amount of people that are not actually welcoming here, or they are kind of maybe scared of getting to know you if you are like a foreign person. Especially I feel like being non-European, being non-white is even like adding more. So in terms of like society in general, if they're welcoming or not, that's how I felt. But like in art, when it comes to art, also it's another story that I think it is hard to find your space as a foreign artist. I think culture and art institutions in general in Iceland, I think, okay, so when I started to work at Nordic House 2 years ago almost, whenever I was telling people that I work at Nordic House, people were telling me that, oh yeah, like Nordic House has such a nice restaurant. They all immediately thought that I'm actually working in a restaurant. Like they never thought that I'm working in Nordic House and I have some position that I can actually do things, you know, like
what position do you have at the Nordic House?
I'm a curator, but like curator not as such that I'm only like curating like visual or exhibitions like that, because many people when you say that curator they immediately think that you're like only doing curating exhibitions. But I'm doing like really all sorts that are related to art, and I have curated performances, concerts, even panel discussions, just everything that I'm really interested basically. And the good thing about Nordic House is that they actually really support me in this. I think I was the first probably, or I heard from some people that I was the first non-European person kind of being in some sort of position in a cultural institution in Iceland, you know, which is like, I think it says a lot.
It does, and in the talking about how it is to be non-European and the possibilities and access that we have to work positions, is there a common view, or is there a common type of jobs that you have seen that people that don't come from Europe tend to have more than others?
I mean, service industry probably, especially if you're actually from non-European country. I think it's even more, you know, you're definitely like, people think that's like many people's like that's how they assume that you're either in cleaning industry or service industry or like doing these kind of things, you know. They'd never actually think that you are in a position that you are doing something a bit different, which also I think there is a reason for this basic assumption, you know.
What is the reason?
Because I mean, I think Icelandic institutions are not very open, and they're not very inclusive towards like foreigners. Maybe it's better in, I mean, I don't really know. Maybe it's better in engineering fields and like chemistry or these kind of fields, because I know a lot of like Iranians, for instance, that are coming here to do their PhD in, I don't know, chemistry and engineering and this and that. And they actually get a job like easier when they graduate, because maybe they also have some sort of, they need like workers in these fields more than art, you know, like art is something that I think it's very, when it comes to art, I think it's very different. You know, art field is very different with like other fields in Iceland.
Yeah, now that you're mentioning that, I remember this panel in which that you organized at the Nordic House. Mm-hmm. You organized this panel called "Why Don't You Marry an Icelander?" Mm-hmm. And it was a little bit about this and how it is to deal with immigration institution. Mm-hmm. So how is your experience dealing with this particular institution in Iceland? Mm. And tell us about that panel.
Yeah, it was a panel. It was a collaboration between, like I basically reached out to AVAC, Artist Visa Action Group. Mm-hmm. And because I knew that they are like working with this visa, artist visa and stuff like that. And I reached out to them and I asked them that if you want to like do something, I have this idea, because I went through this myself. Like I had some visa problem myself, and then there are many people were asking me if I want to marry them, like, or people were telling me that, why don't you just marry an Icelander? Basically that the name came from this, because it's a very like, whenever you have some problem, like the first thing that people are telling you is that, why don't you just marry an Icelander, you know? So I told them that I have this idea, and do you want to like maybe work with this? And we just like started to do that. So, and yeah, because my experience, my personal experience is, I think it's like all people that are actually dealing with that. But I think you should deal with that in order to actually understand how it feels. You know, mm-hmm. I always feel it's like having a panic attack. Like if you have panic attack or you're going through like a really bad high anxiety, people, if they don't have it, they don't understand. Yeah. Like I have been struggling with anxiety all my life, probably since I was a child. And then when I tell people that I don't want to eat this certain food, I feel like I'm gonna die, or this, I'm that, they don't really understand, because they just don't know really how anxiety works, unless they have it themselves, you know, unless they have had panic attack themselves. Then they clearly understand that. I feel it's the same with really immigration office in a way. Like I think you have to actually go through that. You have to deal with that in order to actually really know how it feels, and what is the pressure that you have, and what is the whole mental
toll.
Yeah, exactly, whole mental toll, and how it feels like, especially being an artist. I mean, you need to have some sort of headspace, right, to actually focus on your creative practice and mm-hmm. everything. But I feel with that in mind, it's always present in, like, since I moved here, for instance, and probably you have the same thing, you know, so same experience. When you're moving here, it starts basically everything. Or even before you actually move here, like before I moved here,
in order to get here.
Exactly, to get here, they asked me with like so many other things, like I have to have $20,000 in my bank account, this and that, so many things. And then they asked me to actually do a medical test mm-hmm. in Iceland. And I was like, I can't do it in Iran, because of course it was cheaper for me, you know? And they were like, no, you should come here.
And it's worth saying that this specific medical test,
yes,
that people that don't come from Europe,
exactly.
It's quite expensive.
Yes, you have to do HIV, TB or something that it's not.
Yeah, HIV, tuberculosis.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that, like, I thought that it's like for all people that are coming from like out of European country, but then I realized that no, it's not the case. It's only Iran, Mexico, probably also. Yeah. So yeah, basically all this like made me always super stressed out since I moved here, like with all that, and just all the also money that you have to have in your account all the time, you know.
And that is only to come here, and it is a constant toll that is taken on your mental mm-hmm. stability and emotional stability, because you can tell us how was it in your experience. Every certain amount of time you need mm-hmm. to renew and prove again that you have money and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to prove that you have money, you have a job, or if you're a student, you have money, and So yeah, basically, and then you're always just like waiting for them to answer, like how long. I don't know. I was just always basically checking my email like every single day, like waking up with just like this thought that is there any email from this institution or not? Just checking your email and thinking what's gonna happen, what's gonna be next. Like what if this is not, what if this time they're not gonna approve my visa for whatever reason, you know? So it's like really, really, really. I think like there are so many things that are just like. People here are doing it without any fear, like going on a protest even, you know? And I feel personally always like, whenever I go, I feel super self-conscious and I feel like so scared that what if something happens? And basically it makes me, I don't know, makes my visa or my staying here in Iceland like a, I don't know, problem or something.
It is certainly a constant, a constant feeling of being at the mercy of someone else, and not at clear rules, you know. It very much feels sometimes that it's like a decision that some people can do, and the criteria that they base decisions on, it's kind of like not very clear sometimes. But I would like to thank you for sharing that with us. I would like to go back a little bit to your music work. You are specialized in ney, as I know. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so basically it's a woodwind instrument called ney. It's without any reed, so you don't have any reed. So basically it goes, the mouthpiece goes like completely between your teeth here, up to the gums, basically.
Yeah.
I can show you, I have my instruments. And the thing is that it's actually a very, very old instrument. It has 2 octaves and half maybe. And we can't like tune it because there's nothing to tune this instrument.
You can't tune it?
So what we do, we like basically different size of instruments has different tuning. So for instance, if you want to like play, let's say in a orchestra or a band or something like that, not like solo, or you want to have like different pieces and different tuning, you have to have like as many instruments that you can. I don't have many instruments right now here in Iceland. Like all the instruments that I have are almost the same tune. Yep, sure. So for instance, they are like all, they're a bit like, for instance, this is, we call it ney in G or
ney
sol,
in G,
which is basically when you play it and you have your finger here, and the sound that it comes out is the name of the, like we call it with the tuning. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so
then it basically, this instrument, for instance, it's tuning with C and piano, basically.
Oh,
yes.
so it, okay. So you have to transpose when you are playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this instrument made of?
It's just some plant that is called reed, actually. And I think reed, am I saying it right? Yeah, it's something like bamboo.
Okay.
I feel like it's a plant.
It's hollow?
Yeah, and then we call it haft band. Haft is 7 and band is all this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 here.
So it has 7 divisions.
Yes, exactly. And it is quite limited in a way that, for instance, in this instrument that is like C, we don't have B natural, for instance, or we don't have it. We have to have it with our mouth, like pressure or something. So you have to do this in order to get that. Or you don't have the B flat, for instance, in the first register, like you have it in the second register. So there are so many things like that in this instrument. That's why it's pretty actually tricky to for composers to actually compose for this, like for this instrument. They don't really do it usually, like they don't want to do it much.
Okay.
Fun. And it is pretty hard to actually write it for like in if you want to play in an orchestra or something. It's very hard to actually write something like that for it. So usually this is an instrument that people play in a solo way. Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned that the way you play it is you put this thing between your teeth, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be like this.
Could you maybe show?
Yeah, it's gonna be like this.
I remember you told me that it can even bleed.
Yes.
And when you don't play,
if you don't practice much, like because of course because I don't have like enough space in my teeth, right? And I didn't want to, because some people actually do it. They go into a dentist and they like
Oh.
I don't know, remove some parts so they have like space, that gap between their teeth, and I didn't want to do it because
to play ney.
Yes, and then they don't need to have this plastic anymore, you know. Instead of having plastic, they just have actually something like this metal and this, so it can go between the teeth. But I didn't like it, so I didn't do it. And so basically, this plastic goes between your teeth. But then sometimes, if you don't have enough space, and you don't practice much, so the kind of gap can get closed, and then you might actually play. Which it doesn't happen for me because I mean I often try to at least practice.
Yeah.
Not maybe I cannot do it maybe every day, but at least I try to do it.
You have developed strong gums so that you don't bleed anymore.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
What is this instrument used for in Iranian music?
Well, it's a very old instrument, so not exactly this, because of course it got developed over the history and stuff like that. But in a very simple way, the very simple ney, it actually used, like shepherds used to use it for like gathering their ships back to where they are, for instance. You know, it is like a bit more. It is a bit more like not simple. What is the word? It is a bit more primitive.
Primitive, yeah.
Primitive.
Yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
That the instrument that they used, but they're still using it. So it's a bit different with this. It's not like this exactly, and the sound is a bit different. Also, it's like easier to play. You know, like you don't need to put it here. You just can't put it in your mouth and stuff. Okay. But they're from the same family in a way.
Okay.
So many of my friends, when we were in high school and I chose this instrument to play, many of my friends were laughing at me because they were telling me that, oh, you're like a shepherd or something. And also this is like an instrument that you usually see more male. It's a very male dominant instrument. Like you usually see more men play this instrument. Like I remember in my whole like high school and university time, I was the only girl that I was playing this instrument. And they were all talking about one other girl that was playing this instrument too. So it's like something that it's really rare for women to play this instrument. I think it's getting now a bit more maybe popular within women too. I think at least I see some videos of some women that play this instrument, which is nice. But in general, it's just an instrument that many people don't want to play it because it's so tricky. Like, I mean, the fingering is really easy. Like, it's nothing like special about it. But it's so hard to make it just a sound of it. But this instrument, my first teacher told me that it took him like a month to just make one single sound of this instrument because it's very hard to do it.
What things do you have to take into consideration when you are to make sound with ney?
Yeah, so basically it's your tongue placement, where it is, like your tongue here on the top, on the top there, you know. Okay. And the way that you have, what kind of sounds you're coming out from your lung in a way, you know. If it's pe or is it he, or is it te, like, and there are different different styles. Like some teachers are like you have to say t, t, t. Some people are saying that you have to say p, p. Like, and like there were so many practices that we had to have, like having a paper here, say pe. Pe should be so powerful that or strong that the paper has to like, I don't know, blown away the paper.
Explode.
Yeah, exactly. So many like different things. Also like how your lung, the lung things, and this is for all woodwind instruments though, like the way that you are like getting breath and stuff. But yeah, so there are so many things. And I think, again, it's because it's just a very, it's an instrument that is old, and it has been so many debates over the past years and decades about like changing it in a way that you actually make it more accessible, like, and maybe even add more holes to it so you can actually have like B on it too.
Yeah.
But then there's so many musicians that are really they're saying that no, because like I mentioned before, in Iranian music there is so much prejudice,
yeah.
Prejudice, yes.
Or yeah, they lean towards being more conservative.
Exactly. So they don't want that, you know. They just believe that it shouldn't happen, and it should be just like we should keep this instrument as it was like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's why it is, I think, very tricky in general and hard to play.
Very interesting. And you have with you a very beautiful book.
Yeah.
Would you care to show it?
Sure. I wanted because I wanted to talk about Iranian music in general a bit, you know, because we have this.
I wanted to ask you, sorry that I interrupt, should we call it Iranian music or Persian music? Because these are two terms that I've heard you mentioning very often.
Well, the thing is that Iranian and Persian are, you can actually use them both really. Like I sometimes just use Persian, sometimes use Iranian randomly, you know. But in the recent years, they're talking a lot about that because Persian basically is Persia was the name of Iran, like before 1950 something. I don't remember exactly the year. So it was called Persia, the whole country, you know. But then the king of Iran, one night, he just decided to change the name to Iran, which is the kind of, he did it because Iran and Hitler actually, or the king of Iran and Hitler had a really good relationship, which I'm not proud, but that's a fact. And they thought, like, because Hitler was having this kind of whole ideology of the race, right? That like we are Iranian and stuff like that. So Iran wanted to say that we are the same. But it's funny because it didn't really work well because right now, like when you say that I'm from Iran, many people think it's actually, they're always mixing it with Iraq, for instance, here.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there are a lot of Iranians that they like to say I'm Persian just because the fact of the whole history, and people know more Persia with like a great history and stuff like that. But then when you say Iran, like many people mix it with like maybe some Arab countries, and Iranians often don't want to be mixed with Arab countries and stuff like that in the Middle East, you know. So I think maybe one of the reasons is this, but also so many people use that term because of that. But also, again, like I said, over the years, they're debating a lot that which one is the really like a proper one to use, and because the Persian is one of the ethnic group in whole Iran, basically. It's like almost 70% of people in Iran are Persian. They have the Persian race, they speak Farsi or Persian, and they have the Persian culture, you know. But Iran is huge, so we have other ethnic groups too. Like we have Baluch, we have Kurdish, we have Azeri, we have Gilak, like we have other people there too, you know. And they don't call themselves Persian. They would prefer to call themselves like Iranian or like Kurd or something. So usually, I think generally, Iran or Iranian is a maybe more general, actually a bit more inclusive way to call the country.
Okay.
But still, it's really correct to, you can use them both really. So it's a Persian classical music that I play. But there are other music in other regions in Iran that is like Baluch music, for instance. It's like Baluch is like a, basically, Zahedan Baluchistan is a city, like a kind of state in south of Iran that it has like border with Pakistan, for instance. And the music is so similar to Pakistani music. Like it's just like kind of, it doesn't really sound like Persian music anymore, you know? Or we have in north, we have like music that is very similar to Turkmen music, because we have borders with Turkmenistan, and then from the other side we have the border with Azerbaijan, so the music is very similar to Azerbaijan music, do you know what I mean? So we have like different music in different regions. And the most boring one is from the center, where I'm coming from.
The most boring one, you said?
Yeah, I'm joking, but it's just like a very kind of traditional classic music, you know? It's the music that you hear often as Iranian music or Persian music. It's that one coming from the kind of center, and it's been like basically when you go to music like schools in Iran, they teach you that types of music, you know, that is like a classical Iranian music. And if I want to talk more about the Persian music, it's basically, we have something called radif, that it's like a repertoire in Western classical music. That's why I actually brought this book, so I can say what it means. So this is a book, traditional something, and traditional Iranian music, the vocal radif. We have different repertoire for vocal, if it's for vocal or for instruments. And since ney, it's a bit more legato and like more free, like we use the vocal radif for that, you know? Okay. Or vocal repertoire kind of.
Are these pieces included in this repertoire?
Yes. So
sung as well. For singing?
Yes, but not really singing. There is like all like free meter kind of, like there is no meter, as you can see. See, there's no like, basically it's just very much based on the, here. So
there is, we don't have key, free meter as you said.
Oh, we don't have key here because it is almost like major. That's why we don't have it. But for instance, in other ones, we have, see here, we have B flat, and this sign is called coron.
Which we don't have in Western music.
Which we don't have, no. And it is half flat. So it's less than flat.
Okay.
And more,
it is called coron.
Yes. So for instance, we have that now, but we don't have any basically tempo or anything whatsoever, or meter.
Is there like a, how do you then define that?
Well, that's the thing, you have to just listen to it a lot. And by listening to it, and also this is based on poetry a lot, like Radif and like Iranian music repertoire has a lot to do with poetry. So for instance, for this, they are all like, you can see that there are like poetry here under each line.
This is poetry written?
Yes. And based on those, you basically just like play the music, kind of.
So
like a singer is like singing that, and then you just play with that. So it is something that you kind of learn by listening, really.
So the music responds to the pace of the speaker, which is speaking poetry.
Yes, exactly. And like there's no way really to learn this but listening to it. Like that's why like it's so hard for like a person that is actually not coming from that background and hasn't listened to this kind of music. It's so hard to be able to actually play this with this kind of meter, you know. So you have to just listen to it a lot. Basically, that's the only way that you can learn this.
And you said that that ney is often performed solo, but in this case, these pieces are performed with a vocalist.
Yes, yeah, I have to like edit that a bit because it's not like it's either like playing like you either playing it solo or with a vocal and toneback. Toneback is a percussion.
Yeah,
that's also something that we use a lot. But of course, it's possible to play with other instruments. But I'm just saying that generally, like it's more like you can see that more.
Okay.
So yeah, basically this repertoire is like it's called Radif. The whole repertoire is called Radif. So it's the biggest one kind of. And then in this repertoire, we have done 7 different kind of, let's say, scales. It's not scales, but let's call it scales, you know. And then in those scales, then we have like small tunes. Does that make sense? So basically, let's say that this is one, for instance, one, I'm gonna show it like this. This is, for instance, one daska, we call it daska, that is under the radif, right?
Is it
so
like
we have radif,
key?
then daska, yeah, no, it's not really key, it's like some sort of scale, let's say.
Okay.
Imagine it's like D minor, let's say. And then in D minor scale, we have like a lot of small melodies and tunes, you know? And then we just like have it, and then the other scales. But like I said, it's not really scales. I just don't know how to really explain it for the audiences that they don't know about it, because we don't have scales in Persian music. We have, it's almost like tetrachord in Western music. So we have 4/4, you know, it's always like that. For instance, we have, let's say we have this, I don't know, this mode that it's, let's say from D and E half flat. Half flat is that sign that I told you. Coron. Yeah, exactly. D, E half flat, F, G, A, B flat, and A. It is like not exactly like scale, and we don't play it like scale. Do, you know, like we just like play 4/4 kind of. It's something like that. And you can sometimes have just one piece only with 4 basically notes. That's it. That's why sometimes it's very repetitive, and also it has a lot to do with improvisation. Like I do a lot of improvisation myself. Like based on this, like I use this as some sort of, you know, as some sort of model in my head, and then I just improvise on it.
On that.
A lot. Yeah.
How do you present yourself?
Yeah, it's really hard. Like I used to call myself musician back then, like some years ago. But then I started to feel like, oh, what I am really, because I'm coming from a music background, but at the same time now I'm like working here at Nordic House, and I think I'm working more here at Nordic House rather than actually doing my own practice, which is music, you know. So I'm working more with other visual artists and other musicians and this and that. And then I also like, I do a lot of like video making too, like very lo-fi experimental video making. That's what I like. So now, like recently, I actually struggle a lot that how can I call myself even? So I think I started to think that I would like to actually call myself more like a practitioner, no, creative practitioner, something like that. I think that's something that I would call myself these days, at least. And I definitely use all of them together in a way. Like definitely when I don't know, when I moved to Iceland, I was always like, I'm a musician, I just want to play music, that's it. But now I think by passing time, like working in this kind of institution, seeing so many kind of issues in the society that we have to deal with, and just like the whole world, that's what is happening, the whole world, it's like everything is so tragic these days. I feel I'm much more also interested in politics and activism in a way, So in some point I use them also in my music these days. I feel like I can't really say that, I'm just like a musician, I just want to use my music, that's it. I just want to play music and have fun. I feel I can't really do that anymore. And I feel just in this world we are all kind of, I don't know if I can say that or not, but I feel we are all political in a way. Like even if you say I'm not, I think it's still political. I mean, especially coming from the Middle East, you can't be from there and we say that I'm not political. You are, definitely you are, because everything is just like so connected, It's impossible that I call my parents and we don't talk about, I don't know, what's happening in Palestine now,
That is something that I wanted to ask, that we were talking about the other day. The difference between artists in one place and another, and you told me that artists from Iran, they, I think you said all of them use their music as or their practice as a platform to convey messages.
Yeah, totally. I think like even for instance, when you like look at some works of I don't know, sculptures in Iran, let's say, or painter, you would see like even though that in Iran we have like so much censorship and stuff, but you still could see that the artist like tried to kind of put the message in so many layers, and you still get the message from that, So I think it is very I think most works that you see actually in Iran, they're political in so many ways, which is again something that also I haven't really noticed in Iceland much. I think like in Iceland mostly art is about nature. I mean, okay, it makes sense. Like, I mean, nature has been something important for the whole, like, for centuries, whatever, in Iceland. But at the same time, I think I sometimes feel like it's a bit weird, like, because people also are living in this country, and they are living in this society, and they're living in this world,
I understand. And going back to this, or elaborating on this, I would like to ask you, how do you use your platform as an artist, as an immigrant, as a human? How do you use your platform to acknowledge these things that you are mentioning in the world?
I'm still relearning. Like I always like do something, and I always feel like initially when I started to work here at Nordic House, I wanted to my initial plan was to work with Middle Eastern community in the Nordic context, but then I started to feel like this is not the only thing I really want to work with, because this is not the only issue, or this is not the only interest that I have. I feel like there are so many things that are lacking in this society, in art field, that we can actually do something about, like so I started to think a lot in general about accessibility, and how the institution can be accessible, how art and culture can be accessible for all people, no matter who they are, what kind of backgrounds they have, like what they're doing. And I think I often think about, I don't know, I often think about my mom, for instance. She loves art, she loves films. Like I probably have seen the most, like the greatest films with my mom, and she, like, if you ask her what is your favorite film or your favorite director, she would probably say Tarkovsky. Like she loves cinema, but she's so scared and she's so self-conscious to actually go to the opening, to the exhibition, because she always feels that she doesn't know much about it, or it is so, this elitism is so much in the art community that someone like my mom, or so many people, other people like my mom, I'm sure, they are kind of always scared to actually enter this world, even though that if they do it, they probably would love it, but they still kind of feel like they shouldn't even do it,
What do you think it could be done as a curator to make art more accessible?
Just make, first, like, I think we have to work, like, start with the text, curatorial text, because they're just horrible. They're just like absolutely horrible. Like you can't even like sometimes I read the text, I'm like, this, what they even were thinking when they were like writing these texts, really. Like, I feel they don't even know what they wrote sometimes.
So clarity.
Yes, exactly. So I think just using a simple language for like everyone, that everyone can understand, and also, I mean, art should be for really everyone. At least at Nordic House, we are also having all of our events for free, because that's, again, like something that's has a lot of it with accessibility, you know, like not all people having money to actually pay for this and that, so they can easily come. And of course, there are so many things, and I'm happy because I see that there are a lot of institutions now, they're finally talking about that, they're finally talking about to make it more accessible, make it more inclusive for everyone. But still, I think it's a long way to get there.
I just want to thank you again for being here. It is a pleasure to have you, and thank you for the work that you are doing at the Nordic House. And I would like to recommend the people that are watching this to follow the events that the Nordic House will have in the future, and to follow the work that Elham is doing in order to make this society better.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure.